I've got a timer as an administrator of the system that is ticking in the background. So as soon as those activities are complete, by the time they come in, maybe a day goes by, and now I'm going to automatically distribute another batch of things for them to work on that are needed. And this gets into your, like I was saying, the orientation phase. So if I click on this, this gives me another personal message. So welcome to your first day on the job. So they're now in there. I'm only going to ask them to work on this for a couple hours because I think they can get through all the training. And I've got a little bit of extra information here that I've put forth for them. So very easy to have that put together. And then down below, you can see that we've got some things. I want them to review the employee handbook, watch an anti-harassment introduction, read this, and take maybe a computer-based training around it, and then be aware of some of the other things like a drug and alcohol policy. So for example here, if I open this up, this is my employee handbook. So I can have the introduction, talk about our philosophy of operations. Once they've read that, they sign off and they swear that they have looked at it and complete that activity. Same thing goes for the drug and alcohol policy. It's very similar. We've got some red information up here letting the organization know that this policy may change from state to state. So I might have a few different versions of this, but this is very much the beginning of what we'll see as part of our licensed content that we can provide to you, so that you don't have to go through and write up all these policies or hire an attorney to do them. You can simply use our content and then maybe have an attorney review it, so it cuts down the cost of those types of activities. And then all I need to do is simply, again, go through here, click that I've completed it as well. So let's now say that I've finished my orientation. I've got some things that I'm working on with the company. Maybe I'm starting to get into a cab with a ride-along, but now I'm going to come in maybe on the third day of employment and finish up my last bit of training. This is where I start getting into more of the specifics. Now I'm in the welcome to driver training. You're almost ready to hit the road. We're going to cover some stuff that's going to be very relevant to your position. Very quick welcome message that's going to be waiting for them. We have some more of that licensed content. So if I open this up, the DOT hours of service, this is some of that professional content. And it's nice because I can read the information about what's going to be covered in that course. So this begins the reinforcement process so that they're completely aware of what's going on. And if I launch this, this is going to open up, again, that licensed content. It comes from Skillsoft, one of the leaders in the field. I'm going to click agree, and I'll turn this up.
Tight deadline, so carries on driving throughout a full day and night. When the driver briefly nods off at the wheel, the truck crashes into the guardrail next to the road. Accidents like these become much more likely if you drive when you're fatigued.
Okay, so I'm going to hit pause. This is going to walk them through all the information they need to know about hours of service and the regulations around that, as well as the safety concerns that these regulations were put in place to address. All that information is going to be stored here. They can walk through and read through this. You can see that there is a course test, so they really need to be paying attention if they want to pass that test and get in that cab. So it's not something like a PCR type of training in a dark room where people can kind of nod off and at the end just sign a piece of paper saying they watched the video. It's very interactive. It requires participation, and they need to provide that attention to get through that information. But I also get access to resources. So things like job aids, I can open that up. And so let's open this in a new window. You can see I've got information about the hours of service limits, HOS exceptions, and so forth. If I go back, I have additional resources I can get into, so skill briefs, things like this. If I'm really interested in getting this type of information out to my drivers and having that stuff accessible, I'm going to close that, and we'll take a step backwards here to the site. Other things that we have are things that you can create, again, to make sure that that training is coming through. So things like pre- and post-trip inspections, you can build these out, again, full color. Other things that we have inside here are things like maybe tarping. This is an example that we pulled off of YouTube, and this starts introducing some of that personalized content that we're going to talk to here in a bit when we jump into an effective and inexpensive training. This will give you a flavor for that, where that information is being presented on a regular basis. Now, this is Compligo. It's one of our things that we have, and right off the bat, you're going to see some writing on the screen here. So that 70 degree angle. It's something that I wrote on the screen. Very easy to use our online pen to really emphasize what's going on. I've also added pictures to it. So we've got a little picture of a guy climbing up with what three-point contact is. And I'll turn this up.
Checking to ensure that he's got no holds and looking for his trip points to make sure that he always knows exactly where he's stepping and walking on top of the load.
So if you take that video, upload it to the system, not only can you mark it up, add pictures and text, you can also add pop quizzes to make sure that people are, again, paying attention and can answer just the basic questions that they need to know to show that they can demonstrate an understanding of that material. I'm going to stop it here, and I'm going to move into a different area of the system because I want to show you a few other things as well. So that would conclude basically the onboarding. So again, we have the onboarding piece where it was W-4s and I-9s. We'd have the orientation where we had HR information, and we would have training where we're getting into very specific topics that are going to work with your drivers. Now, how does this apply to you? You'll spend less time recruiting by keeping the drivers that you've hired. Without it, you're wasting a lot of time and losing drivers to your competition if they wash out and think they can get paid quicker someplace else. So you want to get them in a truck and earning fast. The best part, as we looked at with those workflows, is that nothing falls through the cracks. You don't get drivers telling you, I lost that piece of paper, can you get it to me again? And you're not sitting there wondering, has this been worked on? As soon as they click complete, you're going to get a copy of that information if you so choose, and you can also be CC'd on any of the communications that are going back and forth through the drivers. Now, there's another point of this, and this will be at the end of the presentation. We'll start looking at reporting, and that's a way to monitor what's going on with your program. So let's talk a little bit more about the effective and inexpensive training. A lot of those things like the hours of service are going to be available to you. You're also going to get information that you can add, again, regarding your pre- and post-trip inspection. So a lot of the content you already have, you can simply move it into the cloud and then have it distributed and sent to your drivers. So again, very effective in doing that and not having to reinvent the wheel as you go through this. When you're spending a lot of money on training that's inadequate, it's not going to be very helpful to anybody. You want to make sure that you're giving them relevant information around topics such as like we were looking at with the hours of service and the procedures around tarping a load. So how does this apply to you? Again, I think for retaining drivers, if you can go in there and make that big league impression with professionally created content on the big topics that you need to address, you're required by law to show them, you can do that very easily. The other portion, too, is that we're now starting to make it personal. We're showing them that we want them to be part of our company. We're taking our rockstar drivers and having them train on the equipment they're going to be using. So it's very personal and very relevant. So that's another way to really hook them and keep them in. The third point that we'll cover before we jump into more of that reporting is going to be the ongoing communication piece. And without it, you're not treating your drivers like family and fostering that strong culture that builds that loyalty. So you can do things from, for example, this summer barbecue thing that we put together. I've got my logo up top, got a very nice looking document here, and this is very easy to build in the system. This really was just uploading stuff and adding text to it, and now I can distribute to all my drivers. Keeping it personal is keeping it very familial. The other thing you can do, too, with this is that you can send out information like a 90-day notice. You want to appreciate them. If I click on this as a driver, you can see that I've got my happy 90 days. I've got some information. I'm telling them that, hey, we're going to send you a $50 Starbucks card in the mail, maybe to keep your wheels rolling. There's the CEO and owner's signature. And I've even included a video message that Toby here has so wonderfully agreed to participate. Probably you've noticed so far, GoToMeeting has a fine talent to butcher any online videos. It's actually high def, super clear, ready to go. I'll click play and you can see what this looks like.
Hello there. You probably know me already. I'm Toby Graham, Director of Safety here at Acme Trucking. Wanted to congratulate you on hitting your 90-day milestone with us here at Acme. We're super excited to have you with us, and we hope that you find this as fruitful of a relationship as well. I wanted to remind you that if you have questions, comments, things to share with us, as always, my door is always open, as is the rest of my team. So again, congratulations. We're glad to have you with us.
Thanks, Toby.
Do you want me to break in really quick and give you the secret of how we made this yesterday?
Yeah, please. I think this is a good story because we literally just made this yesterday.
Yes. We're based in downtown Portland. We looked out our window yesterday and there was a big truck parked across the street. So one of my coworkers and I ran across the street. He got his iPhone out, came up with something quick to say, shot it on our iPhone, and then handed it over to Professor Joe to pull into the system.
Yeah, once you get that file, and again, it doesn't have to be a professional film crew going to do this stuff. As you saw with Brad tarping the load, as you're seeing this with Toby, as you're seeing this with some of the other video examples we have in here, all I need is either a GoPro or maybe just even my mobile phone, like what they did, to produce that type of video, upload it, and then mark it up and send it out with the information that you want. Very personal, very powerful, and it gets rid of a lot of the walls of gray text that your drivers have to read to be able to complete an activity. I want to tie this back to, again, ongoing communication being important. Drivers are on the road for long periods of time, with hard work, potentially long hours, one bad experience, that's all it's going to take. And then they're going to start feeling that they're not being appreciated. A message like Toby's where it's like, hey, come to me if you've got questions, letting know the door's open. That really helps keep those drivers with you and not looking at those numbers on the sides of the truck.